Why is there a statue of Shiva at CERN? 4 concerns about CERN. 666. Location of Satan. Number 1. The Shiva statue. The European Organization for Nuclear Research, commonly known as CERN, is an intergovernmental organization that operates the largest laboratory for particle physics in the world. It was established in 1954 and is located in Meyrin, a western suburb of Geneva on the border between France and Switzerland. CERN is made up of 23 member states, with Israel being the only non-European full member, admitted in 2013. CERN is also an official observer of the United Nations General Assembly. Multiple experiments have been set up at CERN through collaborations between various countries. The organization is famous for housing the Large Hadron Collider, LHC, which is the world's biggest and highest energy particle collider. Additionally, CERN is the place where the World Wide Web was created. Imagine this: the world's most advanced science lab, where they're studying the building blocks of the universe. Now picture this powerful research center, and right at the entrance, a giant statue of the Hindu god Shiva. But why? Why is there a statue of Shiva outside CERN? Shiva is one of the main gods in Hinduism. He represents both destruction and transformation. Shiva performs a cosmic dance called Nataraja, which symbolizes the cycle of creation and destruction in the universe. His dance is said to keep the universe going, destroying old things to make room for new ones. CERN scientists say the Shiva statue represents the dance of particles colliding and transforming, just like Shiva's cosmic dance. But for Christians, there may be deeper concerns here. In 2004, the Indian government gifted this statue to CERN, acknowledging India's contributions to science and showing a connection between Eastern spirituality and Western science. The plaque reads, Ananda Tandava, meaning the dance of bliss, symbolizing the forces that keep the universe in motion. But here's the question: why choose a god of destruction for a place that's unlocking the secrets of creation? As Christians, we believe in a creator God, one who lovingly made the heavens and the earth. And that's where some concerns start to arise. Some people see the Shiva statue as just a cultural gesture, but many Christians see deeper concerns. Could the symbolism behind Shiva mean something more? Shiva is a god of destruction. Shiva represents destruction, and CERN scientists say they're breaking apart particles to learn about creation. But as Christians, we believe only God has the power to create and destroy the universe. Some scientists at CERN talk about their work with terms like creation and destruction. These words carry heavy spiritual meanings, especially for Christians who believe in God as the creator. With all of the experiments at CERN, some Christians worry about the unknown risks. Could we be unlocking forces that only God should have control over? CERN is a place of science, not spirituality. Yet there is a statue of a God with strong spiritual significance. As Christians, this raises questions about the mix of science and spiritual symbols. As Christians, we have to think carefully about how we approach symbols, especially ones from other religions. In Exodus chapter 20 verse 3, God says, "You shall have no other gods before me." By placing a statue of Shiva, CERN may unintentionally be placing another god where only God belongs. The Bible also speaks strongly about honoring God as the sole creator. Isaiah chapter 45 verse 12 tells us, "I made the earth and created mankind upon it. My own hands stretched out the heavens." This reminds us that creation belongs to God alone. While CERN may not intend to worship Shiva, the statue still symbolizes a god of destruction. For Christians, this can seem like a warning. Is CERN unknowingly moving into spiritual territory, even if it's just through symbolism? Throughout history, Christians have been called to be cautious about symbols and practices that don't align with the Bible. We are taught to guard our hearts and to be wise about the influences around us. So, what does this mean for us as Christians? It's a reminder to stay discerning. While science is important and has brought us many blessings, we also need to remember that God is the Creator, the one in control of the universe. Proverbs chapter 3 verse 5 reminds us, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding." We may not know exactly why CERN chose a statue of Shiva, but we can remember that as Christians, we trust in a loving Creator. We believe that God is sovereign, that He holds the universe in His hands, not Shiva or any other being. How are idols connected to spirits? Deuteronomy chapter 32 verses 16 through 17. They provoked him to jealousy with strange gods, by denying him the honor and loyalty that is rightfully and uniquely his. And with repulsive acts they provoked him to anger. They sacrificed to demons, not to God, to gods whom they have not known, new gods who came lately, whom your fathers never feared. The text clearly connects this worship with spirits. They are in contrast with the true God, the rock in verses 15 and 17. Leviticus chapter 17 verse 7 adds another important connection. A desire for supernatural contact with the spirit world often draws people towards powers apart from those offered by God, through a relationship with Jesus Christ and His Holy Spirit. Idols have always been a concern to Christians. For example, in the Bible, we see the result of the golden calf idol. This idol is strange, as it was created by a man that was a righteous spiritual leader. In Exodus chapter 32, there was an unusual event that happened after the Israelites escaped from Egypt. According to the Bible, God miraculously parted the Red Sea, allowing the Israelites to pass through while the Egyptians were pursuing them. Once the Israelites had safely crossed to the other side, God caused the sea to close back up, drowning the pursuing Egyptians. During Moses' absence on Mount Sinai retrieving the Ten Commandments, the Israelites committed an action that is commonly seen in the Old Testament. They became irritated. Moses was on the mountain for a long time, receiving instructions from the Lord, 40 days and 40 nights in fact. That was apparently too long for the Israelites. They were tired of waiting and were impatient. They despised the one whom God used to deliver them from slavery. This Moses, we don't know what happened to him. They also demanded that Aaron create an idol to lead them in Moses and the Lord's place, a rejection of the first two commandments and a repudiation of their vow to obey the Lord. Tragically, Aaron listened to them and told them to bring him gold, which he fashioned into the image of a calf. This decision holds significance, as the Egyptians and Canaanites, who were the initial occupants of the land promised to Israel, worshiped calf-shaped deities. As a result, Israel scorned the great I Am who had rescued them, and instead worshipped a false god of the nations. The praise that was due to God alone was bestowed upon a gold statue. Aaron declared that they would hold a festival to the Lord, and the people brought burnt offerings and fellowship offerings. It's important to remember that the people performing sacrifices to this idol referred to it as the Lord, despite the fact that the true Lord had prescribed different practices. Religious synthesis always leads to false religion. When idolatry is mixed with Christianity, Christianity is no longer the same. People sat down to eat and drink before getting up to party. They were clearly not having a harmless celebration. Its foundation was rejection of the true God, and the party most likely incorporated corrupt cultic practices from other nations, such as drunkenness and immorality. Paul quotes this verse when he warns the Corinthians, "Don't become idolaters." Moses had been on the mountain for days in God's presence and was completely unaware of what was going on. God informed Moses that Moses' people, notice he did not say "my people," had acted corruptly and had quickly abandoned God in favor of idol worship. The Lord declared that they were a stiff-necked people who would be destroyed. After all, he would be able to turn Moses into a great nation instead. Moses didn't want to become the patriarch of a new nation without the Israelites. Instead, he pleaded with God to spare them from destruction. He didn't make the appeal based on their worthiness, but on God's reputation and character. Moses descended the mountain, carrying the 2 tablets inscribed with God's writing. While Joshua was on the mountain with Moses, he heard commotion coming from the Israelite camp and mistakenly thought an enemy invasion caused it. But Moses was wiser. Moses was filled with anger when he witnessed the people dancing around the calf. This led him to break the tablets in disappointment, as Israel had broken the covenant made by God with them in a short span of time. The Israelites were made to drink the powder of a burnt calf, which was a consequence of their sin. Exodus chapter 32 verses 21 through 24. Then Moses said to Aaron, "What did this people do to you, that you have brought such a great sin upon them?" And Aaron said, "Do not let the anger of my Lord burn. You know the people yourself, that they are prone to evil. For they said to me, 'Make a god for us who will go before us.' For this Moses, the man who brought us up from the land of Egypt, we do not know what happened to him. So I said to them, 'Whoever has any gold, let them tear it off.' Then they gave it to me, and I threw it into the fire, and out came this calf." As a result, he falsely implied that the idol was created supernaturally. Moses recognized that the people were out of control. Despite the fact that he had confronted them with their sin, many remained unrepentant. So he exclaimed, "Whoever is for the Lord, come to me." When the Levites gathered around him in response, Moses dispatched them to carry out God's judgment on those who continue to practice idolatry and immorality. As a result, 3,000 men were killed within a short period of time. Sin is no joke. It brings death. The next day, Moses reminded the people of their sin and declared that he would intercede with God on their behalf. This is followed by another remarkable example of intercessory prayer in the Bible. Moses confessed the people's sin and pleaded for their forgiveness. If God refused to forgive them, Moses requested that God destroy him instead of them. He was ready to give his life for this ungrateful, sinful people. We also see this in the image of gold. King Nebuchadnezzar gave the order for the creation of a colossal statue made of gold. The gold statue that Nebuchadnezzar had commissioned must have been magnificent. It stood 90 feet tall. It's possible that the king planned it so that he could consolidate his power by bringing together all levels of his officials for a grand ceremony. These rulers were to attend the dedication of the statue erected by King Nebuchadnezzar and fall face down in worship of it. Everyone who disobeyed this command ran the risk of being cast into a burning furnace and being burned to a crisp. Everyone obeyed Nebuchadnezzar's orders because he was determined to establish himself not only as the uncontested political leader of Babylon, but also as the supreme religious authority in the city, or at the very least, almost everyone. Due to the fact that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were among the officials that were present at this massive gathering, a confrontation was unavoidable. 3 of the men in the room did not bow down, even though everyone else in the room did. Many people cannot imagine that social pressure. It was not an easy fit. When Nebuchadnezzar found out about the situation, he immediately flew into a rage. It's surprising that he gave the accused a chance to respond to the charges leveled against them. That he did may indicate his regard for them. But make no mistake, the king would accept only one response: total concession. They had 2 options: either worship the enormous gold idol or perish in the fire. Despite his earlier praise for the Hebrew God, Nebuchadnezzar added, "Who is the God who can deliver you from my power?" The king's question, as before, would be answered eventually. These valiant Jewish men defied the king's direct order and placed themselves in the hands of God. Their response is quite impressive. In other words, they said, "We'd rather fear our God than your furnace any day. Even if he decides to let us burn, we will still serve the living God rather than your dead idol." Priceless. They preferred death to unfaithfulness to God and had no doubt planned for the possibility of this day for a long time. It is hard to fathom how angry Nebuchadnezzar was when his authority was challenged, but reportedly his face turned red with fury. In response, he ordered the furnace to be heated 7 times hotter than usual. When Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were tossed into the flames, the radiant heat was so great that the men carrying them were killed. No doubt, wearing flammable clothing, the faithful Hebrews had no hope, unless hope itself intervened. It was God's standard for Israel to be different from the nations around them, but they had not obeyed. Sin always hurts. It always shackles. One reason Israel fell to the Assyrians was God's anger over Asherah and Baal. But this is not the only issue at CERN.